So just some reminders before we get into the video. First reminder is to make sure that you're keeping an eye out and an ear out for the key word for this lesson. Reminder number 2 is to make sure you're taking notes. Include the date, lesson number, aim, and standards to help you refer back in your notes. Let's get to it.
So welcome back. We are going to move on to lesson 4. Our aim for today is how do we multiply and divide positive and negative numbers. So let's try the warm-up for today. What are the rules for multiplying and dividing fractions? So think about that. So for division, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. And that's when you flip your fraction. For multiplication, you want to multiply across. Okay, let's move on to the notes. So when you're multiplying and dividing, when you have the same signs, your answer will always be positive. So for here, when you have a positive times a positive, you'll get a positive. And negative times a negative is going to be a positive. When you divide, so a positive divided by a positive is positive, and negative divided by a negative will also be positive. So the same signs are going to be positive. Different signs, your answer will always be negative, and this is for multiplication and division. So we have a negative times a positive, you get a negative, and a negative divided by a positive, it'll be a negative. Same way it goes if you have a positive times a negative, you'll still get a negative. If you have a positive divided by a negative, you'll have a negative. A strategy that you can use is memorizing this, that the same signs are always positive, different signs are always negative. Or you can go with the tic-tac-toe. So we have positives are down the diagonal of the tic-tac-toe board. We have to match up 3. All negatives are surrounding it. And then if you look, if you have a positive times a negative, you'll get a negative. Or let's say in order to make tic-tac-toe you need 3, so you have negative divided by a positive is a negative. Positive times a positive will be positive. Negative divided by a negative is positive. So making a tic-tac-toe will give you what your answer will be and what sign it will be. Another strategy that you can use are smiley faces. If you notice you have 2 positive signs as your eyes, you're going to be happy. So that means you'll be positive. 2 negative eyes, you know you'll be positive, happy. Negative and a positive will be negative, unhappy. Or a positive and a negative will be negative and also unhappy. So the answer will be negative. A third strategy that you can use is the triangle. So you have your positive at the top and your negatives on the bottom. And here you have a positive times a negative is a negative. A negative divided by a negative is positive, or multiplication will still be positive. And then just positive for answers will be positive. Let's try an example. So here are your 3 strategies that you could possibly use, with the 4th one being memorization. So here we have a negative answer we have no sign here, so that automatically makes it a positive 1 1/3. So I have a negative times a positive. If I know that, I know my answer will be negative. So let's find out what it is. I'm going to first convert my mixed number into an improper fraction. I'll get -7/2 times 4/3, because 1 1/3 is 4/3. If I multiply this, I'm going to get -28/6, which will simplify to -4 2/3 simplified. And that's my answer. For number 2, here we have a negative and a negative. So we know when you have a negative and you divide a negative, you have a positive answer. I'm going to convert my mixed numbers to improper fractions. -2.5 turns to -5/2. Divided by -1 1/8 turns into -9/8. I'm going to keep, change, flip. So that means I have -5/2 that I keep. Division turns to multiplication. My negative stays the same, but then I flip my fraction, take the reciprocal, and get 8/9. When I simplify that, I will get a positive 40, because 8 times 5 is 40 over 18, 9 times 2. This simplifies to 2 2/9. And it's positive, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. All right, for the third problem, try this one on your own, pause the video, and we'll come back and go over it. So here we have Sarah who needs to make bows. She bought 8.5 yards. If each bow takes 1 1/4 yards of ribbon, you want to figure out how many bows she can make. All right, so if we have a total of 8.5, you want to split that up into 1 1/4 yards. We're going to KCF, because we're dividing fractions. You're going to get 17/2 multiplied, and if this 1 1/4 is 5/4, you're going to flip it and say 4/5. When you simplify and you multiply, you're going to get 68/10. And that's going to give you 6 4/5. But you want to know how many bows, and that's full bows. So technically you can't have the 4/5. It's not quite a full bow. So 6 bows Sarah can make. Okay, so you guys are going to try to do your own independent work. So if you're in class, you're going to continue on your independent work. And if you're at home, you're going to go to Google Classroom for your assignment. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.